A young girl who worked part-time at a restaurant on a school break got out of work and disappeared without a trace. The following days, his story began to turn into shocking details and unexpected twists. When the truth became known, even seasoned detectives were in for a real shock. After all, none of them faced with such horror. Friends, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like, it's very important to me. Lisa Marie Gray was born on July 11, 1983, in Dawes, Mississippi. The girl was cheerful and active, constantly participating in the activities of her school and singing in the choir. She was also active in the local church. At school, Lisa decided that she wanted to become a primary school teacher and had previously chosen the college where she planned to study for the profession. In the summer of 2000, when she was 16, she also took a part-time job at a restaurant owned by her uncle. The girl liked this job. It was simple enough, but it allowed her to save money for the future. Another advantage was that the restaurant was just over a kilometer from her home. It was also a small town where the vast majority of the inhabitants knew each other. So Lisa actually worked in a circle of acquaintances. On June 22, the girl had to finish her shift at the restaurant at 11:30 p.m. She got home by car, and it was only a few minutes, but her parents never waited for her daughter that night. Sometime later, her mom decided to call one of her employees. She admitted that Lisa might have stayed at the restaurant to chat with friends. The woman contacted the cook, who said that Lisa had left a few minutes before him. The man added one interesting detail. As he was driving from the restaurant after his shift at the side of the road, there was a car near the restaurant with an alarm on. Given that it was already dark outside, the man didn't get a good look at the car. However, after calling Lisa's mother, he speculated that the car may have been hers and promised the woman to turn around and drive to check it out. The car was only a few hundred meters from the restaurant. The cook went back to that spot and saw the car still standing there with the accident on, and the man recognized Lisa's car. The girl herself was not inside, which seemed strange to him. Then the cook decided to drive to her parents' house, where he told about his find. They got even more worried and decided to go to that place with the chef. They were looking at the car and noticed at once several disturbing points. First, the car had a flat tire. Apparently, Lisa discovered this shortly after she left the restaurant and stopped by the side of the road. Secondly, the car doors were unlocked and Lisa's purse and phone were inside. All this made parents think that something bad might have happened to their daughter. Realizing that her car had a flat tire, she could have walked home and to the restaurant in minutes, but she didn't. Moreover, she did not call relatives who could have come and helped her with the problem. As a result, the parents decided to go to the police, and the investigators immediately began to look for her. The first thing they did was to interview all the staff at the restaurant and those who visited the restaurant that day. The restaurant was located in a small town, and most of its visitors were familiar to the staff. The officers immediately told the police that on that day, one of all the clients stood out. A man named Thomas Lawton used to go there twice in the morning and just before closing. The remarkable thing was that both times the man came in different cars. The first time he was in an old car, and the second was in a van. In addition, the cook told the police something else interesting. According to him, Lawton actively tried to flirt with Lisa, despite being 35 years old and the girl 16. The restaurant staff knew this man. He grew up indoors, later went to the army, and to this day was a recruiter there. The day before, the man returned to the city to visit his grandmother, and investigators decided to talk to him. They went to the house where his grandmother lived. The woman herself slept at the time, and the police opened her sister, who lived with her in the same house. She said that Thomas was already asleep. Given that it was a deep night, the investigators decided to talk to him the next day. Before he left, one of the cops spotted a van near the house. He matched the description of the car that Lawton used to drive to the restaurant before closing. However, this fact did not mention anything. The investigators are gone. Lisa remained incommunicado throughout the night, her whereabouts unknown. By morning, the police had begun interviewing all the visitors to the restaurant, but with no significant result. They decided to return to Granny Lawton's house. The woman opened the door to them and said that Thomas had gone fishing by the pond, which was at the edge of her property. The investigators asked the woman to go there to ask the man some questions. She agreed, but Thomas wasn't there. This seemed strange to them, and the police approached his grandmother again. This time, they asked permission to inspect her house, and the woman again agreed. Thomas wasn't inside either, but investigators found something interesting. When they entered his room, they saw some t-shirts that appeared to be stained with blood. Another disturbing find was waiting for them in the car that Thomas had been seen driving near the restaurant for the first time. There was a rope tied so that it looked like handcuffs. It was all very suspicious. The police immediately requested a court order for a full search. Immediately afterwards, they began a more detailed search of the house and also sent Lawton's van to the experts for examination. However, the whereabouts of Thomas himself remained unknown, and the police issued a search warrant for him. By the evening of the same day, they were told that the man had been found, and the detectives were expecting a very unexpected surprise. Lawton was found lying on the side of the road with an inscription. "I'm sorry about the carving on his chest." The man also had multiple wounds on his wrists. He was immediately taken to the hospital, and the investigators rushed there. During a conversation with the police, Thomas said that he did not know Lisa and had no idea where she was. Almost at the same time, the experts began to examine his van, and there was again a shocking twist waiting for everyone. They found the body of Lisa Gray under the convertible seat. The girl was not wearing any clothes, and her hands and legs were tied. From the marks on her neck, the experts immediately concluded that she was strangled to death. A video camera with a cassette tape was also found inside the car, which shocked the detective. The tape records Thomas abusing Lisa and bullying her. This recording was interrupted several times, and in the last part, it was seen that Lisa was already dead. Despite this, the perpetrator continued to abuse her, and for some time on the tape, it was also visible that Lawton was using the object that the experts found in his van during the abuse. They found the DNA of the man and his victim. The man was immediately arrested and taken into custody after leaving the hospital. He continued to deny his guilt while investigators searched the grounds of his grandmother's house for additional evidence. 18 meters from the house, behind a thick layer of bushes and trees, they found a newly dug grave with a shovel sticking out of it. Apparently Lawton was gonna bury the victim's body there, but he didn't have time to do it. With all this evidence, including video footage, the police were prepared to take the case to court. Thomas continued to deny his guilt, but things changed a few days later. After his arrest, he was temporarily imprisoned, and his wife came to him. Lawton was married to her for several years, and they had a 2-year-old child. During the conversation, the man told her that he wanted to confess everything. After her departure, he contacted the police. During this conversation, Thomas admitted that he had abused the victim. However, he added that he did not remember killing her. Rather, the man admitted that he had probably done so, but could not say precisely. According to his story, that night he saw Lisa on the side of the road, stopped and offered to help change the tire. While talking to her, the man mentioned that he was in the Marines. After that, he asked the girl if she had ever planned to go there, but Lisa said she wasn't even considering it, and she has other plans for the future. Thomas was enraged by this response, and then acted in a fit of rage. The man forced the girl to get into his van and drive to his grandmother's house. That's where Thomas parked it, and over the next 4 hours, he subjected the victim to violence, recording what was happening on camera. After Thomas killed her, he hid the body under the seat and returned to his grandmother's house, where he went to bed quietly. The next morning, he went to the overgrown area behind the house and prepared the grave. At the same time, Thomas could not clearly explain why he had carved the phrase "I'm sorry." "I'm sorry" had inflicted wounds on his chest, and why he had inflicted wounds on his wrist. Investigators questioned the veracity of some key details of his story. They assumed that Lawton had planned to attack Lisa beforehand after he saw the girl and tried to flirt with her. He arrived at the restaurant just before closing and ordered a burger to go. He could have damaged Lisa's tire and waited for her to go home. After the girl stopped on the side of the road, Thomas was able to attack her and force her to get in the van. several facts supported this version. First, experts found the tires of a punctured wheel with a sharp object. It was with his help that Lawton could pierce the wheel. Secondly, the investigators found a handcuffed rope in a car in which the man had come to the restaurant for the first time. It suggested that Lawton might have planned to kidnap someone before he met Lisa. The police did not fully understand why Lawton confessed, but misrepresented some of the facts. However, the evidence and his confession were sufficient to bring the case to court. The man was provided with lawyers who immediately requested that the trial be moved to another district. Given that every Dawes resident knew Lisa's family and followed the case, they feared bias. Thomas initially decided to plead not guilty, but 3 weeks before the trial, the man pleaded guilty to all charges. In so doing, he automatically waived the jury's decision, leaving his punishment entirely to the judge. Moreover, if convicted, Lawton could only receive the death penalty. The trial began on 8 October 2001. Lawton apologized to the victims' relatives and asked his lawyers not to challenge any of the prosecutor's arguments or even to try to provide extenuating circumstances. Given that he was facing the death penalty, the judge was surprised by this behavior. However, Lawton insisted that he was aware of the consequences of his decisions. Moreover, the man even stated that he wanted the death penalty, not a life sentence. However, his lawyers did try to press for pity and claimed that Thomas had a very traumatized psyche. In their view, he had been subjected to repeated violence as a child, and his service in hot spots had aggravated his injuries. According to lawyers, all of this had a direct impact on what Lawton did to Lisa. They brought in a medical examiner who said Lawton may not have been aware of what he had done. However, the prosecutor also called for an expert to refute the allegations. He concluded that the suspect had fully understood the gravity of his actions and had committed them of his own free will. Lawyers also pointed out that Thomas had never broken the law before and served in the Marine Corps for 18 years, but none of this helped get the sentence reduced. Given the fact that the man confessed to the crime, as well as an impressive body of evidence, the trial was completed in less than a month. Thomas Lawton was sentenced to death and 30 years in prison. The prison term was to be independent of the first sentence, and the death penalty could be imposed at any time without waiting for the offender to serve the full 30 years. Almost immediately afterwards, Thomas suddenly changed his position and tried to challenge the verdict. He filed appeals in which his lawyers sought to cling to any possibility of achieving this goal. At first, they said that Lawton was not fully aware of what he was doing, confessing what he had done. Lawyers then challenged the legality of the searches of his grandmother's house, as well as the receipt of all evidence. All these appeals were, however, dismissed as they were without merit. Since then, Lawton has filed numerous complaints in which he wrote that he did not receive proper legal protection in court, given that he himself had instructed his lawyers not to try to exonerate him. These attempts also failed. Thomas continued to create various appeals over the years. In the United States, it is often decades between the imposition of the death penalty and its execution, and Lawton did not spend that time in prison until 21 years after sentencing. The execution took place on 14 December 2022. Thomas, who was 58 years old at the time, last apologized to Lisa's mother, who came to watch the execution. Before his execution, Lawton ordered a final dinner consisting of pork chops, sweet baked potatoes, peach pie, and French vanilla ice cream. Lisa's mom said she found it in her to move on and forgive the criminal. Nevertheless, she believed his execution should have been carried out. Share your opinion on this story in the comments, and be sure to like it under this clip if you like it under this clip. I also recommend you to subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching.